I have lots of students ask me, what about Ishmael? Well, why is it that the Bible puts all the emphasis on Isaac and not on Ishmael, since Ishmael's the oldest son? And the answer to that is really key to understanding the whole story of the Old Testament, really the whole story of the Bible. And it's the fact that, well, let's just look at the timeline so that I can show you what I mean. Go share that screen and let me take you to the timeline. Now, let's just do this. I'll save some time. Now, on this timeline, I want to show you something that's really important. By the way, this is a part of your exercise, your project for the context for Genesis chapter 17, 18, and 19. All right, here we go. Ready? Into the land of blessing came a curse. Into death came the promise of a seed. God made a covenant / contract with Abraham and his seed. The seed passed from Abraham's son Isaac to Jacob to Judah. And then we don't see much about the seed for a while. And then we followed this down. And then God made a covenant with David, but he also failed. And although it doesn't mention the seed here, David is the seed of Abraham. And then we finally read, the Jews read their scriptures and waited for the final seed of Eve to deliver them. Okay, so this is the story of the Old Testament. The story is the promised seed when God promised Adam and Eve that the seed of the woman was going to crush the snake's head. That's our hope, that our slavery to sin and our slavery to death and our slavery under the lordship of Satan on earth, that's going to come to an end. And it comes to an end through Jesus Christ, through his cross, and then through his glorious resurrection from the dead. He crushes Satan, and that's glorious. And that's what we wait for. It's all about the seed that God promised to Eve, that your seed would crush Satan's head. And then we read about the seed, the promise of the seed, Abraham and his seed. The seed passed from Abraham's son Isaac to Jacob and then to Judah. And it's interesting, it goes from Isaac to Jacob, Judah. Judah is not the oldest son. He's not the firstborn son, Reuben is. But Judah is the one who receives the seed that's passed on from generation to generation to generation until finally we come to Mary. And it says the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, the snake's head. So the whole story of the Old Testament is about the seed. When people say, well, what about Ishmael? Ishmael is Abraham's son. God blessed Ishmael. You'll see that when you do your context study today. God blessed Ishmael, and God had great promises for Ishmael. But the seed doesn't come through Ishmael. Jesus is not an Arab. Jesus is a Jew. And he is the seed that God promised to Eve. He's the seed that God promised to Noah. He's the seed that God promised to Abraham. He's the seed that God promised to David. That's the seed. It passes from generation to generation to generation to generation to generation. Ishmael is not that seed. So he could be the richest man in the world. He could be the greatest king in the world. He could have all the world, but he still is not the seed. Whereas you take Judah, who is the son of Jacob, and Judah is not the oldest son, but he's the seed, and therefore the promise passes through him. So that's the key. And so as you go through this simple context study, just take a few minutes, but the key that you need to realize is everything is about the seed, because everything is about Jesus Christ. The Old Testament is the story of the coming of the Messiah. Notice, into death came the promise of a seed. And notice, the Jews read their scriptures and waited for the final seed of Eve to deliver them. It's all about the coming of Jesus Christ. So I hope this will help you to go, as you go through this, to realize this promise of the seed, which is sometimes translated as descendant. It's Zera, and it's translated sometimes as descendant, which means seed. Seed means descendant, so that's what that is. So if you have questions, please ask me, but this is what's going on here.